Greetings, my name is Martin and back in BC and Wrath of the Lich King, all I ever raided were the little 1 or 2 boss raids, because due to my job at the time I was unable and or unwilling to commit to a proper raiding guild or to do any of the bigger raids in a pug. So today's topic is one I actually wanted to talk about when I first learned about it, but then other stuff came up until yesterday, where I came across the Reddit post. I don't see many posts about this, but I think 3 smaller raids is a huge win for midnight raiding scene. And that was my cue. So let's read it quickly. Well, just for a starter, I was never a big raid guy, especially because of the time commitment you needed for it. I did raid back in Legion, it was the most raiding expansion for me ever, but after that I only did LFR for story and of course became a huge fan of the story mode raid for the same reason. However, in Midnight I'm really excited, for the first time since Legion, to try raiding in harder difficulties again, mostly because of the smaller raids. I even think 6 bosses raid might be a bit much in terms of time commitment, still a win over the 9 to 11 bosses. First of all, I find it really funny that a lot of people also in the comments view all bosses in one raid as the old way it's always been. Meanwhile, split up raid tiers were kind of the norm, or at least a regular occurrence for the first raid tier of an expansion, all the way back from Classic, where we had Onyxia, over Gruul and Magtheridon in BC, Malagas and Sartharion in Wrath, and so on and so forth, all the way to Warlords of Draenor, where tons of content was cut, most likely also the smaller raids. Legion then had a 3 boss raid, and I don't really know about BFA and Shadowlands, but there it may have actually been only the big raids. And then came of course Dragonflight and the War Within, with definitely only 3 big raids each. You see, the post has 155 upvotes and 83 comments on it 18 hours after posting. As I already have a video set up for today, December 15th, the post is going to be at least about a week old when you see this video, but I don't think that it'll lose any relevance in that time. From the looks of it, the majority of replies is on the more positive or neutral side of things. We have user Darogar say, most raid guilds are probably just seeing it as one raid with random travel time outside the raid at certain points. In the long term, it ain't changing anything. Which is absolutely true. I don't think that this will change a whole lot about our raid evening as a guild as well. But it clearly shows how unaware people who have the time to spend on raiding are of the fact that not everyone lives a life that allows for that. From the other side, we can read from user Niniboggy. As someone without a raiding guild who pugs, I'm excited for it. It's much easier to pug a 3 raid boss than a 12 boss one. It makes pugging mythic raids a more believable goal as well. Especially that last point is something I hadn't even thought about before reading that comment. I personally was always put off by pugging mythic because they are usually posted alongside a list of weak auras you're supposed to download. And I'm not into that kind of crap at all. But that's also going to be gone in Midnight, so absolutely this is going to be a big chance for establishing mythic pugging for those small size raids. You won't be bothered by the mythic lockout as much and won't necessarily have to commit a massive portion of time to give it a shot once a week. But then there's also the opposite end of the raiding spectrum that I want to talk about today, because this was actually the first thing that came to my mind. This is the Eye of Kilrock. Let's look into that. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the matter of pros and cons of this change. There's obviously a little discussion about travel time and the vibe of the big raids, but in all honesty, overall, I'm much on the side of it doesn't make any difference for established guild raids, but it helps the pugging community a lot. Those are the 2 main takeaways. The main thing I want to talk about today, however, is this. What does the reintroduction of smaller raid sizes tell us about the future of the other raid format with low time commitment and few bosses at a time? What does it tell us about the future of LFR? Ever since its introduction all the way back with the Dragon Soul raid, the last raid of the Cataclysm expansion, LFR had a somewhat critical standing with the community. I don't think anyone ever considered LFR as fun. Everyone who does actual raiding goes in for the first 1 or 2 IDs, hoping for a quick tier set drop for their 2 or 4 set bonus, People who don't play M+ or Delves or at least raid normal just spend the 90 minutes per week for the chance at veteran gear. It's what I did for most of Season 3 in Dragonflight after I had freshly returned to WoW and was entirely clueless as of what else to do. But the reality is, in a world in which players can get reasonably good gear from Delves, which are solo play and accessible at any time, a world in which the last 2 Mythic Plus seasons were tuned fairly easy and it seems like this is going to be the future of M+, in a world in which WoW Classic had no LFR added but continued into Mists of Pandaria entirely without it, a world which has introduced story mode raids so anyone can get the story of the raid without having to play LFR or any other type of raid content, and in a world where we have heard several people at Blizzard calling the introduction of LFR back in the day a mistake or a bad or at least questionable decision. Will we see the end of LFR in Midnight? Because honestly, what's the point of it today? If you don't play it for gear, don't play it for the story, don't play it for fun, it's entirely worthless. And getting rid of that one step in itemization would also already help removing some of that upgrade confusion and the ever-growing item level that keeps on messing up scaling and requires regular stat squishes. Just cut it out. Give adventurer or veteran gear to low-tier delves and heroic dungeons and scrap the other track entirely. Maybe remove heroic dungeons as well while we're already at it, because they're just as pointless as LFR. Let delves and story mode raids do the job of giving players an accessible challenge for reasonably strong gear and having them take part in the story. Let's see where we can get with the new ways of world content, keywords prey and heroic world tier. Trim some fat off the upgrade tracks. I think the smaller raids are a great chance to do that. I hope this is the long-term plan of the team. Get rid of LFR, get rid of heroic dungeons in the process, bring the player base closer together as you've already been doing it for the past couple of patches with the one-button assistant, the rotation assist, the simplification of class gameplay in Midnight, less reliance on add-ons in future encounters. So much work has already gone into that. The removal of this low-effort, middle-ground content is only the next natural step. We don't need 4 raid difficulties anymore. Especially not that one that nobody ever cared for in the first place. In my video about add-ons, I talked a lot about band-aid solutions. And LFR was such a solution from the very beginning, and it never changed. I understand why it was introduced, it had its time, it was never pretty, but we have better solutions now. We got delves and story mode, we got the catalyst, we'll have small size raids that are accessible for people who can't or don't want to commit 3 or 4 hours at a time. So it is time to rip off the band-aid. LFR, it's time for you to go. What do you think about this change? Do I have a point here, or did I miss the massive player base who just loves running LFR on end? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing if you enjoy this type of content. This was the Eye of Kilrock. See you next time.